Most of us have very usual cars. Maybe an old VW, or a red fancy Ferrari. Our roads are full of those, but they rarely catch our attention. While VW can mean that you have some financial problems, Ferrari shows that you are a rich lucky bastard. But in the end, you still get lost in the ocean of similar cars. However, if you really want to stand out of the crowd, and show not only your financial status, but also your personality, what you need is something that cannot be found in any auto store, something crazy, strange and absolutely unique. To give you some hints, we collected these 24 weirdest and most unusual cars ever made. Enjoy, share and don't forget to tell us which is your favorite one. 24. Messerschmitt KR200. During the earlier years of the 20th century, it was common for automobile designers to also design airplanes and vice versa. This perhaps explains why so many vehicles at the time looked better suited for the skies than the roads. This German-made tiny car, affectionately known as the cabin scooter, was produced from the mid-1950s up until 1964. At the time, the KR200 featured a teeny 191cc, two-stroke engine and had a curb weight of just over 500 pounds. 23. The DeVille 16. A road car that can go 320 miles per hour? A quad-turbo V16 made from two LS V8s with 5,007 horsepower? And all this from a car made by a startup company from Dubai? It all sounds like a joke, I know. Vaporware we shouldn't give a second glance? The concept immediately gets closer to the ground when you learn that its 320 miles per hour target is supposed to be achievable by the mid-level 3,000 horsepower version of the car, not just the 5,007 horsepower everybody keeps talking about. There's also the fact that its American-made V16 engine is real, and way more elaborate than you'd imagine. It seems like the unofficial motto Dubai is, go big or go home. Because not only do they own the tallest building ever known to man, but they will soon own the world's fastest production car as well. But as you already expect, you can't get all of that power without forking over big bucks. According to some rumors, prices are north of $1 million per car. 22. Stout Scarab. No, this is not a prototype Volkswagen Beetle. This is called a Stout Scarab, and surprisingly this behemoth is a product of early America automotive engineering. The Scarab was manufactured in the 1930s and early 40s by William Stout, a former Ford Motors executive who rose to fame after the success of the Ford trimotor airplane he designed. Despite its pitiful looks, the Scarab was considered highly innovative at the time. Not only was it viewed as the first ever family minivan, but the Scarab was also one of the first vehicles to feature an independent coil spring suspension on all four corners. Ahead of its time? Absolutely. Not everyone falls for the unorthodox shape, but they all take notice if a Scarab glides into view. Just a glance at that elegantly fanned rear grillwork confirms that the Scarab was, and is, something special. 21. BMW Isetta. The BMW Isetta is a single-cylinder microcar which was originally designed by ISO S.p.A., an early Italian automotive firm. Despite originally being manufactured in Italy, many others outside of the country also begin licensing the designs, including automotive companies in the UK, Germany, Brazil, and France. Although this egg on wheels has had many different manufacturers, the BMW version was by far the most popular as it ended up selling over 160,000 units in its short 6-year production run. 20. Sunswift Eve. Sunswift is the team behind the Eve sports car. As you can probably tell from the photos above, the Eve is solar-powered and, believe it or not, is the first car of its kind to be fully road legal in Australia. The design and construction of Eve began in early 2012 and was completed within 18 months in time for the 2013 World Solar Challenge. On a single charge of its batteries, Eve can travel up to 500 kilometers, 310 miles, or over 800 kilometers, 500 miles, if powered by its own solar cells. 19. Heinkel cabine. Yet another example of what you get when aircraft manufacturers produce cars. This 4-stroke, single-door microcar was manufactured from 1956 to 1958 by German aircraft maker Heinkel. Before this company was into producing microcars, they made many of the highly regarded bomber planes which were used by the Luftwaffe in World War II. 18. Davis Divan. This 3-wheeled convertible was produced in the 1940s by the Davis Motor Company of Los Angeles, California. If you're wondering why you've never heard of this Los Angeles-based auto company, it's probably due to the fact that it was only functional for 1 year. Glenn Davis, the brains behind the operations, could have perhaps saved his company and realized his dreams had he paid his staff. Despite initially raising $1,500,000 from over 300 pre-orders, only 13 cars were made before the company went bankrupt due to the numerous lawsuits filed by unpaid employees. 17. ETV, electric supercar. The extraterrestrial vehicle, or ETV for short, is a one-of-a-kind kit car designed by entrepreneur Mike Vetter of Miko, FL. The design of the ETV is clearly hit or miss. There is virtually no in-between because either you love it or you hate it. Whichever way you're feeling sway, you must agree that this vehicle is extremely unique looking and worthy of this list. What you might not want to agree to is the nearly 6 figures you'll have to shell out to call this baby your own. 16. Peel P50. What separates the P50 from other microcars on this list is the fact that it is officially the smallest of the small. The P50 is so small it makes today's smart cars look like minivans. In fact, it was originally advertised as being just big enough for one person and a bag of groceries. There wasn't even enough room for a reverse mechanism. Instead, if the driver were in a bind, he'd have to manually maneuver the car. Unfortunately, only 27 of the original lot are still believed to be in existence. Due to their novel appearance and diminishing numbers, P50s which have shown up in auctions over the years have sold in excess of 6 figures. 15. Tramontana R. Yes, believe it or not, this thing is street legal. Although it looks like something straight out of the Gran Turismo racing game, the R, as it is called, was actually designed for real-world driving rather than specifically for the racetrack. Like most super sports cars, you not only need to be rich to get one, but you also need to be super lucky. This is because only 12 of these beasts are manufactured every year and the starting price hovers around $500,000. 14. Amphicar Model 770. Designed by Hans Trippel and manufactured by the German Quant Group, fewer than 4,000 Amphicars were produced from 1961 to 1968, making this a rare find for automobile aficionados. The Amphicar features a rear-mounted engine that drives the rear wheels on dry land and the reversible propellers at sea. It also features boat lights on the rear of the car and a horn on the front hood. Perhaps what is most appealing about the 770 is the fact that it was so creative and many years ahead of its time. In a day and age where manufacturers seem to lack real creativity, seeing cars like this helps us realize how innovative the golden days of the auto industry were. Today, the Amphicar is a collector's item, especially if it's a good restoration. A nice example is valued between $60,000 and $80,000. An Amphicar was owned by American President Lyndon B. Johnson. Known as a practical joker, he used to frighten visitors to his Johnson City, Texas ranch by driving them downhill directly in the lake, shouting that he has no brakes. 13. BMW i8. BMW would have you believe that the new i8 is the sports car of the future, and it's a believable claim of a car that is daring, exotic and state-of-the-art in just about every way you might judge it. But the i8 also marks BMW's return to a part of the market that it has flirted with in years gone by, and rather memorably so. The Z8 and M1 have a successor in this car, and they are some daunting acts to follow. The BMW i8 can sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.5 seconds and is electronically limited to 155 miles per hour. 12. Phantom Corsair. The Phantom Corsair is the brainchild of Rust Heinz, heir to the Heinz food processing company. Although this ageless beauty looks as though she could have been designed in the 21st century, in fact the original plans and prototypes were produced in the earlier part of the 1900s. The goal of the creator was to produce something unlike anything else on the road. Unfortunately, this vehicle, which would have cost roughly $210,000 in today's dollars, never made it to mass production because Rust Heinz died in an unrelated car crash in July of 1939. 11. Buick LeSabre. Modern-day LeSabres look nothing like their 1951 forefather, as evident in the photos above. Because of its unique appearance, some consider the 1951 LeSabre to be one of the most iconic show cars of that decade. Designer Harley Earl was heavily inspired by the jet engine, which was a fairly new and revolutionary technology at the time. Maybe that explains why this monster of a car is often described as a jet engine on 4 wheels. 10. The Lykan Hypersport. This limited edition sports car made history not only by being one of the most expensive cars ever, but also because it was the first ever to come from the Middle East. Created by W Motors, a company founded in Lebanon, but headquartered in Dubai, this $3,400,000 super sports car has some very unusual features. Aside going from 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds and having seats sewn with gold thread, the Hypersport is also said to have over 15 carats worth of diamonds embedded into its headlight. While this may seem impressive, do you truly believe it is worth $3,400,000 hard-earned bucks? 9. The City Car. Until 2011, the City Car was the most produced electrical car in United States history. The Tesla Roadster eventually toppled it, however. Official production of the City Car had stopped 34 years prior to being overtaken. Although the City Car looks small and compact, it has a rather lengthy wheelbase coming in at 63 inches and a total vehicle length of 95 inches. Throughout its run, a few variations were made to fulfill different needs, including the right-hand drive version known as the Postal Commuter Van. These were ordered by the U.S. government to be used on mail delivery routes. 8. Nissan S-Cargo. The S-Cargo rolled out together with POW in January 1989, got very popular for its snail-like styling. The name, S-Cargo, is coined by combining the French word, escargot, that means snail with a cargo. The luggage room was 1,230 mm high and very useful, and the body sides were often used as advertising billboard. The instrument panel was very unique. A table-like instrument panel with the big speedometer located in the center and the shift lever below the speedometer. The S-Cargo is the only commercial vehicle in the Pike car series and is still very popular. This is very few cars produced from the late 1980s to the early 1990s will still look modern on today's streets. In all honesty, the S-Cargo looks very much like many of the eco-friendly cars we see today. Nevertheless, in spite of those eco-friendly looks, the S-Cargo in fact has a 1.5-liter 4-cycle gasoline engine, which means it isn't as green as it appears. 7. 1957 Fiat 600 Multipla. This looks more like a tour vehicle than a consumer car. However, the Multipla was designed with working families, not vacationing families in mind. It's easy to see why such an open-body, rear-engine vehicle would make our list of the most unusual cars, as there simply aren't many out there like them. In spite of it not being a huge seller in the US, the Multipla is considered one of the pioneering full-family vehicles. 6. Myers Motors Sparrow. This funky-looking, battery electrical car is known as a Sparrow. These shoe-shaped, eco-friendly vehicles are specifically designed for everyday commuting and city driving. Available with either a direct current or alternating current motor, these cars only have a 40-mile range and cost over $30,000 each. 5. The 1957 Aurora. The 1957 Aurora was an American car designed by a Catholic priest named Father Alfred Giuliano. Before working for the church, Father Giuliano had been enrolled in art school and always dreamed of designing cars. Unfortunately, the project never made it further than the prototyping phase due to bankruptcy in 1957. In some ways the Aurora still lives on because many of its features, including seat belts and instrument panels, were not standard at the time. Can you imagine how different driving must have been without these luxuries? 4. The Maybach Accelero Concept. Designed by Cocked Alcade, this Maybach Accelero concept car is tailor-made for any impending zombie takeover. Fully equipped with front and rear-facing robotic machine guns, tank tracks, and a rocket launcher, the Accelero is exactly what you'll want when the dead roam free. In all seriousness, you shouldn't expect anything resembling this Accelero concept to be available at your local auto dealer. Nevertheless, the subtle beauty of the Maybach combined with the ferociousness of the added weaponry make a truly unusual car concept worth of this list. 3. 1960 Pininfarina X. The X was a prototype, space race-inspired vehicle created by the Italian coach builder Pininfarina. Aside from designing and building luxury coaches, this firm also designed yachts, trams, railcars, airplanes and other car models. The X is by far the most sought after. Recently at the Barrett-Jackson auto auction, one sold for over $300,000. Battista Pininfarina's personal championing of this radical project to build a more efficient vehicle shows just how far ahead of the game the Italian design house was in terms of aerodynamics. Pininfarina personally drove the X to various manufacturers in an attempt to persuade them to mass-produce the car, so the buyer can be assured that the car has been driven by one of automotive history's greatest names. 2. The Tatra 603. Produced from 1956 to 1975 by Tatra, a Czechoslovakian auto company, this rear-engine luxury vehicle definitely deserves a spot on our list. It's powered by a massive 350 pounds V8 engine and was among the first European cars to embrace the McPherson strut suspension system. Even thought it is being billed as a luxury vehicle, the T603 is also a decorated racer, winning several international competitions. 1925 Rolls-Royce Phantom 1. This may very well be the most beautiful Rolls-Royce to ever grace our eyeballs. Known around the world for its one-of-a-kind appearance, the 1925 Rolls-Royce Phantom 1 Coupe is one of the few vehicles that become more valuable as time passes. Last we heard, the couple had been sold to the Peterson Museum for an undisclosed amount, but in 1991, it sold for $1.5 million. According to data.bls.gov's inflation calculator, $1.5 million in 1991 would equal more than $2.6 million today. When the 1925 Phantom Coupe was first created, nothing compared. Its 6-cylinder engine and 4-speed manual transmission could propel it to 100 miles per hour easily, and at speed, the interior was still quiet enough to hold a conversation, which was impressive at the time. The exterior styling for its era was very out of the ordinary. In an age where most vehicles still looked like boxes on 4 wheels, the 1925 Rolls-Royce Phantom was all about the curves. Everything from the wheel wells to the doors looked like they were inspired by Willy Wonka himself. And we mean that in the best way possible.